very, 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 very serious gospel. Taking it literally, we would know not what to do. God is clearly not telling us to hate our mother, our father, our wife, our sister, our brother, and those in our family. What he is saying to us, which requires an official interpretation, is that Jesus Christ places upon his disciples a requirement of the highest order of commitment. There should be, if you can help it by the grace of God, there must not be. No greater commitment in this life than to Jesus Christ, God Most High. Number one. Bad news. It's not your wife. It's not your husband. It's not your country. It's Jesus Christ. All those things will find their place, and they're all important. God first. God first. And when people do that, think if everybody did that. Wow. Wow. What a world we would have. Truly, talk about kumbaya moments. Brothers and sisters from one shore to the next, one continent to the next, all together, living under the same Father who loves all of us the same way, unconditionally, born and unborn, sick or healthy, with an unconditional goodness and love. And that's where our first and foremost commitment should be. It's not hating anybody, it's loving him first. Now that was meant hating metaphorically. What's not meant metaphorically? What brings me this morning into St. Thomas Catholic Church in Crystal Lake, at one level, not everybody here, but for most of us, is that when he was at the Last Supper, 17 hours before he died, he gave his last will and testament. He said, and you're going to hear, which he did not mean figuratively, he did not mean metaphorically, he did not mean allegorically, he did not mean as a suggestion or an innuendo. They're going to kill me. I'm going to die. And you are my closest of friends. I want you to do something for me. I'm asking you. I'm commanding you. I want you to get bread and wine and gather the people around you. And when I say this is my body, I mean it. You might not be able to explain it. You might not be able to understand it. But I mean it. And I say over that cup of wine, that chalice of wine, when you pronounce these words, this is my blood, I said it, I meant it, I want you to do it. Don't weasel out of this one. Please don't symbolize this one. Don't do metaphor. Stick to it literally. We've been doing it. And God bless all those who are arm in arm with us under the same loving Father. We have not moved away from this teaching. Other Christians have. We've stayed faithful to this teaching. And it's unfortunately a teaching that is of the utmost importance. Because in the end, what do we all want to be? One body under the same head. Many parts, one body. We receive his body and we become his body. And we go out. One person that best, in my judgment, has perfected, or maybe not perfected, has given evidence that this is possible, abandonment to and loyalty to the Father in an absolute way, and lived out as a member of his holy and loving body, is Saint Mother Teresa. It's right now 9:15 on your watches. Don't look. I'm good at this job. It's give or take a minute. 4 hours ago, the Mass ended in Rome. 4 hours ago today, this time, 5:50, I saw it. The Mass ended in Rome where Pope Francis declared Mother Teresa to be a saint. He dogmatically declared she has been raised and elevated to the roster of those who share the beatific vision without sorrow or shame or injustice in the glorious halls of the heavenly kingdom. Let me tell you a little bit about Mother Teresa. You can Google all this information, and there's no reason why you shouldn't. She was born, I want to say, in 1910. Her name was Agnes. She had Albanian parents and born in what is now present-day Macedonia. Her father died when she was young. She didn't grow up with a father. Her mother was a very devout, faithful woman. When she was 18, she joined the Sisters of Loretto. She learned English. She traveled. Her order sent her to Calcutta. 20 years as a faithful teacher, a religious sister, in training, on a train, she got what she has famously referred to, as a call within a call. She was called to be a nun, poverty, chastity, and obedience, and teaching people, students. And within that call, she got another call. She saw the sick and the dying, in particular a man being eaten by worms, and he'll bring him to a place of rest where he died peacefully and under the comfort of her care. And she started with her former students, what became, all the way back, I want to say in 1948, the early rudiments of the missionaries of charity. Now this went on for 20 years without notice. 25 years without notice. Mother Teresa was in the slums of Calcutta helping the poor with orphanages, with places that, like the Little Sisters of the Poor who were here 2 weeks ago, with the elderly and the dying. This was before AIDS became an epidemic. They were on the forefront of all that when that became an epidemic for AIDS hospice, which I visited in Washington, D.C., and food distribution, food pantries. Those were sort of the three main ones. They also taught children, not in schools that they ran, but like in Haiti, for example, with the school system all broken down. I saw a classroom with like 120 kids. And imagine that, teachers. One classroom, 120 kids. So, in 1972 or 1973, a famous British journalist heard about this story, so he wanted to investigate it. So he got on a plane and flew to India, Malcolm Muggeridge, and he made the story famous. One element that made the story famous was not just her heroic service or her undying love for the less fortunate. It was this. He took pictures in dark rooms where the older people were dying. This is true, when he developed the film, these are his words, there was a translucent light. There was a light present in the photographs taken of the dying, who were well cared for. So this story, as you can imagine today, back then before Facebook, imagine what we did without Facebook. Anyway, thank you. It's appropriate. Unbelievable. So this story caught on. The thing just went viral. There's no viral. It can't go viral. It caught on. The newspapers picked. It was like AA. AA had a similar story, quite frankly. If you know anything about the history of AA, it was kept very close. Then once they started reporting it, boom, the thing just went nuts. It just expanded. I was going to say blow up, but you can't use that expression. It just went wild. And people caught on. And then priests started joining, and nuns, more nuns, and Christian brothers and associates. So now, 2016 still, 4,000 nuns, 147, you can Google it, 37 countries. I don't know how many priests, I don't know how many brothers, tens of thousands of associates. Now, one thing no one knew, and she kept quiet, in the midst of all of this, she confessed this to one man, a Jesuit priest. Why she chose a Jesuit, I do not know. But she chose a Jesuit priest. And she confided in him her spiritual life. And she told him she did not want this to be made known. Well, when she died in 2007, the priest did not destroy her personal correspondence. He saved it. Because he knew what he was dealing with here. This happens to me all the time when I meet you for private and personal counseling. I know I'm talking to a saint. I want to preserve your correspondence. And you didn't get that. Anyway, thank you again. So he knew what this was. So after she died, it came out. And what came out would shock you. She was not living in affection from God every moment, pulsating through her heart, soul, or mind. What she was living has very often been referred to as the dark night of the soul. She did not conceive of nor feel in her soul, in the depths of her heart, an affection by God. She personally, truly, intimately felt in her innermost self abandoned and lonely and unwanted. And she claims that enabled her, not disabled her. And we're all guilty of this. I know I I am, where's God? Why isn't God doing this? What about my brother? What about my... And you mean well. And I'm not diminishing sorrow for a loved one. We all do it. You don't think God's got your loved ones? Would you? Again, I'm sorry. In private, I'll be a lot nicer to you. I just started lifting weights again. I got to stop. I got to stop. Because my answer to all of you is, you don't trust God enough. I know you're sad. Don't be sad for the dying person. Be sad. You want to be sad for yourself? Be sad for yourself. Just know who you're being sad for. Not for him. In her loneliness, in her sense of abandonment, she dealt with what society considers the lowest of the low. The furthest, most marginalized, those nobody cared for, those who had lives that to many of us would seem, God bless you, hopeless. And she went, and she cared, and she gave for 70 years in this. So I'm pushing that book across from the coffee shop downtown. What book? Go to the bookstore. It's on the door. The book cover is on the door. It's written by a priest who knew her personally, who wrote the book while being in one of her missions in Ethiopia, who told me when he was my teacher, he was, when you get ordained a priest, don't screw it up. First of all, he told me. Second of all, he says, yeah, that's right. Second of all, he said, you go hang out with these sisters. You find them and you hang out with them. And I did. On St. Malachi's, on Oak Street, Levitt, Oakley, near Lake, where the old United Center used to be. I mean, the old stadium, the United Center is close by there. And St. Procopius in Pilsner District. They're contemplative nuns and nuns who serve the poor through soup kitchens. I met them in Washington at a hospice for AIDS patients. I met them in the Bronx, in New York. In Haiti, we met them. In Haiti, women would drop off their babies who couldn't care for them. Most of the children had distended stomachs, malnutrition, dehydration. Many had IVs. And when I brought the volunteers, this is interesting, one little story. We brought the volunteers from this parish, and we were strictly told, do not pick up the babies. What did we do? Picked up the babies. You say, well, how heartless is that? If you have an abandoned baby, and what do you think happens when you pick up an abandoned baby? They don't want to be let down. So the crying you hear right now, God bless the kid for being in church, which is beautiful and awesome. Imagine that crying by 50 times, one child. I don't want to be put down. I need someone to hug me. I need someone to love me. And just for the record, Mother Teresa, in her own writings and her own voice, at the presidential prayer breakfast and in other places said, of all the poorest places she's ever been, nothing is more spiritually poor than the West, which she meant Europe and the United States. And I quote, anybody who kills the most vulnerable and innocent of human life, that is the poorest place on the face of the earth. She also referred to all the drug addicts, how people are so lonely. We brought up Facebook earlier. I think it's a big scam. I think every once in a while the devil needs his due. You recognize the devil. I'm not going to applaud him, like give him an Academy Award. But what an amazing scam he pulled off. I got all these people in basements doing heaven knows what on their computers with 2,000 friends who are lonely, depressed, lack intimacy, and in need of a real friend. Bravo, Satan. What a move. What a move. No human contact. All these other people. She gave to the most desperate, the best gift you can give somebody, your time, your attention. So one last story. I was in New Delhi, India, and I'm talking, this is tough for me in a sense, because we go to Haiti a lot with people in the parish. When you watch the news and you hear about inner city Chicago, whether it's Inglewood, the West Side, Austin, the 15th Police District, and you hear about poverty, that's not what I'm talking about. That's poverty in the United States. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about running water or electric or Facebook. or access to services. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about no water, no Facebook, no 911 services, very limited, if at all, health care, thatched tin roofs, living in squalor for as far as the eye can see. They tell me that from a ship, on top of a ship, if you look at correct me after Mass, as far as the horizon goes, is how many miles? Anybody? No Navy people? They say 12 miles. The horizon is 12 miles. That's what they say. Some guy corrected me after Mass, but he says, well, from a submarine. I go, no, it's not what I'm talking about. From the top of a ship. Anyway, I was in New Delhi, perched on a hill, as far as my eyes can see. If you're driving into Chicago on 90, when you get to like Mount Prospect, Arlington Heights, you can see the Sears Tower. That's what, 20 miles away? So I know what I'm talking about. You can see far if you're up on a hill. Your eyes go, if you got gift of sight. So as far as my eyes can see, I saw poverty that was honestly, from our country's vantage point, unimaginable. Never saw anything like it. I don't want to see anything like it again. When people talk about poverty in the United States, I can get a little angry. It ain't the poverty I'm talking about. Radical, have nothing, live for a piece of bread poverty. That poverty, not this poverty. Hey, I need my cell phone bill updated, or someone's got to pay for it. Oh, I had to wait in line for health care today. I had to go back down to the unemployment office, get another check. They don't have those stuff. There ain't no Section 8 housing. Anyway, in the middle of all this, a priest is taking us to a missionary of charity facility for the disabled. One beautiful image which stuck in my mind, I thought it was beautiful, was this water buffalo just sitting down by this river, and these two kids, a boy and a girl, 10 and 12 years old, around, playing in the river, playing scavenger hunt with a plastic bag. And I stopped the priest in the midst of all this horrific poverty, and I said, isn't this wonderful? A nice moment watching kids play like they would play in our country. Like you'd go to the Wisconsin River or the Rock or whatever. It was the Fox, we're on the Fox. He said, Father, that's not a river. That's the sewage that's pumped in from that hole all your eye is looking at. That's where it comes down. So we finally got to the facility where these disabled children and adults, the missionaries of charity were caring for, Mother Teresa's order. And Sister Superior took us around. They treated us like kings in the midst of all this poverty and discomfort, this loneliness, and all the heartbreak. My friend, Father Brian, at one point, he was touching a kid, was sitting in the bed. He went behind the kid to touch his head, and behind the kid's ear was soap. There was soap. He said, and Sister Superior standing by the bed, there's the nun caring for this young man, he's probably 15 years old, disabled. He goes, soap. He goes, this child was just washed. This child just had a bath. And the nun caring for this young man, who will remain unnamed, unrecognized, no honorable mention, probably taking care of that young man for heaven knows how many years, as well as the missionary of charity, working in the lowliest places, in the parts of the world for all these years, will not get mentioned. When she realized someone commented on her good work, that's all she can do. You give him some range of motion, feed him, clean him, try to do the best to teach him how to pray with his limited ability to have mental facility. She just started crying. And it was powerful. So here's the ending, folks. In the darkest corners of this world, places I don't invite you to go, nor do I wish you to go, unless God gives you a call within the call to consider the possibility. Christians are there. People are serving. Mother Teresa's sisters have an enormous amount to be proud of, that through her leadership and charism and God's grace, with an empty spirituality of no feeling, yet God's incredible grace flowing through her, she was able to bring the light into that darkness and that hope to the hopeless. What a proud day for all those who serve and take care of others. In her memory, in her name, and asking for her prayers, may she make all of us more loyal to God and more loving of our brothers and sisters, especially the most marginalized.